Thank you for joining us today. It is officially Thrive Thursday. I'm Laura Brandao, and today we have three amazing guests who are going to share with us how they have adapted to our new normal and are currently thriving. Let's meet our lovely ladies. From Washington State, we have Sally Nelson. She is a premium price coach. From California, we have Sandie Nierenberg. She is the CEO and founder of Eat Green Corner. And from Maryland, we have Germaine Williams. She is a beauty wellness strategist. First off, ladies, thank you so much for joining me this evening, and let's dive right in. Okay, Sally, take us back. It's been quite a year, and I do have to mention, you ladies are officially the 1 year episode of Thrive Thursday. So this is a big night tonight that here we are. 1 year ago, we started out everything being a lot of unknown, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. And here we are 1 year later. We've learned so many lessons. We've come through this, hopefully together. And now I want to hear what changes occurred. And the biggest thing out of all of this is if I was to say to you, let's go back to 2019, before any of this happened, what did you learn that happened in 2020 that you actually would apply to where if everything was back to the old way, what would you keep doing? So Sally, tell us.
Well, I had always heard people talking about making friends on social media, and I thought, oh, that's not my thing. I've got to meet people in person. Even though I'm an introvert, I still have to have that one-on-one connection and then go hibernate in the evening. So I think that the big thing that changed for me was just stepping into needing to connect, network, develop friendships, keep friendships going through social media, and that it is possible. I think that was a big learning for me. And I've been able to grow my business, grow my network during all of this time.
Wow, that's awesome. So during this, so take me back. So before this, were you using social media or, virtual platforms like this in your business? Or did you start doing more of that or really diving into it once the changes started happening?
Well, I did some on it. I wasn't as I'm more consistent now. Still could always improve on that, but I'm more consistent now. And however, I wasn't using it as a way to connect with people at the level I am now. I was using more in-person networking and those kinds of things to connect with people. And now I'm help host, I attend networking events, and the connections have been with people all over the US and internationally. And so it's been a really good skill for me to learn, is connecting with people through social media, through Zoom, and also just making videos of myself and putting myself out there. That first one is hard. That first one's hard. And then every time it gets a little bit easier, right? Until
don't stop, Sally. I mean, number one, you use the word introvert, right? And I think, this has been a common theme on the show where people are like, hey, that, it was uncomfortable going on camera. It was uncomfortable putting myself out there. So now I'm curious, obviously you haven't changed from being an introvert, but you've adjusted a little bit and you've come to grips. So what advice would you give to other introverts out there as we've adjusted to our new world here?
Take advantage of this change and this time where we don't even have to leave our house to connect with people. And I mean, if you're an introvert and networking events in person aren't your thing, this is the time. There's some really great ones out there that will help you connect with people in different ways, whether it be business or hobbies, and those kinds of things. So this is do it now. More and more people know how to use Zoom. They know how to use social media to connect. So this is the time.
Isn't it so interesting that we, as humans, right? Do you know what the number one trait you need to be successful in life? And I don't mean success in business, just as a whole. It's actually adaptability. That's the number one trait. And I think the biggest thing that we've all learned is once you kind of stop fighting things and you adapt to, hey, this is kind of working, we can use this, all of a sudden it opens up opportunity. So I love that you've kind of said, hey, I'm going to be open to this. And then my last question before we move over, my next question is, what will you do? Okay, everything is back to normal. Okay, we get past whatever needs to happen in order for people to be able to be together again. What will you do in life and in business, personal and business, in terms of coming together and networking and that type of thing?
Yeah, so I see myself getting back into in-person networking. But since I am in a fairly small town and there's not a lot of events, continuing doing networking online. And what I've really loved about it too is being able to share it with my kids, showing them what I'm doing. And that even though they think that everything I'm doing has come so easy to me, but I talk through with them, I'm really nervous right now, I'm going to be getting on and doing this presentation, and telling them kind of those things that I'm going through, just to show them that even if you're scared, you can still do hard things. And yes, I may embarrass myself with some of my reels, but you know what,
Sally?
Okay.
Sally, all you're being is human. That's all you're being. It's no embarrassment at all, because nobody is an expert at first. We all have to continue to practice to become an expert. Like Germaine was just telling me, she's a lifelong learner. She's always learning new things. We all have to just keep learning and getting better. And I love that you're sharing it with your children, because
showing them we can make mistakes. Yeah.
The only bad is us not trying, right? As long as we're trying, we won. So that, I love it. All right, Sandra, let's get over and hear, or Sandie. You want me to call you Sandie instead? Sandie?
Sandie.
Okay, Sandie. So Sandie, tell us, here you are with a nonprofit organization, right? That, was relatively new. You only started it in 18. Here it is, 20, right? So only a few years in, but wow, what an impact. And maybe just tell the audience what you do. And I could imagine that became very important during lockdown and during the pandemic. So tell us, how did it affect you, and what did you learn that you will never go back to?
So you're right. We became operational with our first site. So we definitely were not anticipating a pandemic. That said, the lockdown, especially the first month of the lockdown, really opened a lot of people's eyes to food security. And we're a nonprofit that uses urban agriculture as a way to alleviate food security. And so interest to our nonprofit that, might otherwise have taken longer to develop. It also, I think, reoriented people in their philanthropic and volunteering ventures to food security and the concept of making sure that everybody has fresh produce at all times, because a lot of people experience that for the first time, just what it was like to not be able to go to a grocery store or have food instantaneously at one's fingertips. So, we really, early on, we thought we can either shut down operations and just maintain where we are, or we could really ride the wave. And so we chose the latter, let's ride the wave. This was a huge opportunity to catch that surge in interest. We knew it would be relatively a moment in time. And so we took that opportunity to grow far bigger and faster than we anticipated. So we went from, 2 sites to 16 sites we have now. We have a couple hundred volunteers, and people who, we were looking for ways to get outside, to volunteer, to still have social connection in a COVID compliant way. And so we really took advantage of that. It was a lot of flying by the seat of our pants. You talk about adaptability, and 100%, that is, the biggest lesson that we learned is how can we adapt to the ever-changing situation? How do we take something that's staffed by volunteers, an all-volunteer organization running volunteer sites, and how do we really just pivot every time the health guidance changed, every time things opened and closed? Preparing to help schools reopen as part of our program is running school gardens. And so, it's been a constant iteration and learning experience, but, we would definitely not be here today if we hadn't taken on the challenge of expanding during the pandemic.
But you're making a difference. Like
yes.
Everything that you did from 18 up until that point was necessary, because as 2020 hit, you needed to step in and fill that void. And you're correct. All of us, I don't care where we were in the country, we all had that feeling of scarcity, because all of a sudden we felt out of control of going to the food store, or what, whether or not we were going to be able to get food, or what the experience was going to be. And you took that leap to create an organization and be there for when we needed it. And not only were you providing the food and all of that, look at what, from a mental health standpoint, you were providing to the volunteers. The opportunity for them to be outside and feel like they were contributing, and even the people that were even just donating funds or whatever they were doing, you fulfilled that purpose of, I can do something in my control, because right now everything's out of control. So I just want to do something that I can feel, hey, I did something within my control. Wow, that is
exactly.
That's incredible. So what was the thing that you learned that you wouldn't go back?
So I, having before this practiced law for 12 years, have always lived in an environment that was very FaceTime oriented. And, you needed to be in the office, you needed to be there for meetings. I would not look back for a second in adopting, in the widespread adoption of online platforms. Participation in our programs grew, people just kind of all understanding and taking, we can all learn and connect through an online platform. Whether it's, huge public participation in meetings by being on a virtual platform, seeing more participation in school PTA meetings, things like that, where people before had to be so much choosier about what they could volunteer for or participate in because they required in person. Now we have, I think, such greater engagement across so many different facets of our life. So I wouldn't look back to the way things used to be for a second. I think this has been a huge leap forward to allow, especially those of us, people who are really busy, who, I've got young kids, I've got my business, I've got my things. I so appreciate being able to participate in areas that I was previously unable to because physical presence was required.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And even, I am in the mortgage industry. And again, a lot of paperwork, a lot of, they said we leaped 10 years into the future because everything had to become digital. You had to be able to digitally close a loan. You had to be able to take an application. So yes, to your same point, we jumped 10 years into the future within our industry. So I agree with you. And that's a really good point, what you said about, I know myself, when I was running, I'm running a business, I can't volunteer to be part of things, but it wasn't because I didn't want to. It wasn't because it was just not physically possible to get there.
Exactly.
So you're correct. By opening up the opportunity to do things virtually, you can get more participation, engagement, and allow people to be part of things. I love that. That's great. Okay, Germaine, let's jump in. Tell us what changed. What did you learn? What would you not go back to? Tell us all of that. And I would assume you did a lot of face-to-face type of business too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting about pandemic, who was ready?
No one.
No one was ready. I mean, I think in our wildest imagination, we would have never envisioned something that would stop the entire planet.
Right.
So I mean, I was completely caught off guard. I'm just going to be honest. I absolutely love what I do. I've been doing what I do for over 2 decades, and it is a face-to-face. It's hands-on. I'm in your face. I'm touching you. And so to be able to not do what I have done and love to do overnight, business shut down, can't open. I mean, I would be fined and my business license taken. It was like, wow, I don't know, Laura, that I had really planned for this.
Right.
You think about retirement and you know what? I love what I do. I could do this for a long time. So that was the inevitable, right? So to be able to not do what I do, not see my clients, not come to my business that I've spent so much energy and time and love nurturing and growing was quite devastating.
Yeah.
And
it happened so quickly, right? So it wasn't like you had like 6 months to prepare for this. This boom, that was it.
Overnight. Literally, I saw my last client on a Tuesday and I was mandated to shut on Wednesday morning. So it wasn't like I had a cushion to just navigate and gather my thoughts. And so, you know how you often say, man, if I just had 2 extra days. I'm so tired. I have so much to do. And now the universe said, okay, let's give you a whole year to figure this out. So, it was really very therapeutic for me, to be honest with you. It allowed me to sit down and gather my thoughts. And it wasn't so much that I needed to pivot. That's kind of the new word that people say. It wasn't that I needed to pivot because I love what I do and I'm on track. I'm living in purpose. Every day I know why I'm here. But what I think it allowed me to do is sit back and say, okay, how can I do this a little differently? How can I be more effective? How can I make more of an impact on the world? And what I realized is that I do too much. I realized before I often would say, I'm on 10 all the time. And I used to think that was a good thing, actually, to be on 10 and juggling all these balls and, being a mom and being a business and doing this. And, I thought there was some kind of, you're going to say superhero power. I wore that S proudly on my chest because I thought that was great. But what I realized when I was forced to sit down and shut down and be quiet and be still, that actually wasn't good. Some things were suffering. My daughter was growing faster than I could appreciate.
Right.
I had this epiphany that I had worked every Saturday of her life.
Oh, wow.
And I said, okay, that's a problem. Even though I spent time with her, during the week, but I just realized I was doing too much and I needed to figure out how I could be there for my family primarily, but also be there for the people that I feel that, God has put me in a position to help and serve and be able to do that while I still feel balanced. So I think to answer your question, what would I do differently?
Yeah.
I think it's really about putting priorities in priority.
I think a lot of people have that same response. I think we realized what was truly important, right? I think we all realized that some things that we thought were important weren't. I've heard over the course of this year a lot of inner work. You've heard a lot of people say, all of a sudden I was like alone with my thoughts. And most of the time I was never alone. I was always running, somewhere. I was always going somewhere. And it was never a quiet moment to actually be alone with my thoughts. And all of a sudden we were alone. And all of a sudden we had time to think. And there was a lot of reflection that was done that I think was healthy, right? I think that reflection was healthy. And I think people definitely have learned. And that, there's one episode that I had a cancer survivor, a woman that survived cancer. And she told the story that I've said this a few times because it really impacted me. And she said, Laura, when I would go to chemotherapy, my nurse would say, never let cancer be in vain. Meaning, what did you learn from going through this? And I equate that to the pandemic, because don't ever let this be in vain that 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we go back to these cycles of all of the things that we were doing that we said, oh, it's good that we learned that lesson. So that's kind of where we are. And I'm so happy that we're learning these lessons and we're being reminded so that we can move forward. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Laura, I would say this, I hear a lot of people say, oh, we're going to go back to normal. I don't think in the bigger scheme, I don't think anybody really wants to go back to normal, because to your point and to, these other ladies, I think that we were doing some things that really weren't propelling us in a space that we could be there for others, we could be there for the community, we could be there for ourselves. So I don't know that I want to go back to normal. Right. I want to go back to what this has created that is going to be a better version of what was, you know what I mean? So I did a lot of meditation and a lot of inner work, for sure.
Agreed. And I think that's the beauty of this is we did learn things and we can take those into the future. I love it. All right. So Sally, now we're to the point that I get to hear the results of the homework assignment that you guys were given. And that homework assignment was to ask someone that cares about you what your special gift or gifts and superpower is that you share with the world. So please share with us, what is your special gift?
Okay, well, I asked 5 people to share that with me, and more than half of them said that my superpower is helping women see their potential and to see their superpower themselves. So
yes, and let's dive into that. So I had asked Sally before we went live what she does for a living, and she said she's a premium price coach. And I had said to her, well, does that mean you actually do the pricing, or do you provide the confidence to the women to ask for that price? And you said it's a combination of both. So I know I work with a lot of women within my organizations, and I know that that is a struggle for a lot of women. So please, Sally, tell us, what do you do to provide women with this confidence to be able to ask for what they're worth?
Well, we start by talking about their belief in themselves. And, around money, especially, there's a lot of stories that we have grown up with. And I work with women, and, women have their own set of stories that they're told growing up, whether people actually said the words to them, or if it was implied, right? And so we start there, and then we work through confidence in their business, and what their special process is, what their package is going to help people actually, like what results are going to get people. Like we get so crystal clear on results. You know, that's a huge piece of it when they see, okay, how is what I'm doing, no matter what it is, it's impacting finances, relationships, health, getting towards your vision, all of those things. Because if you impact one area, you're going to impact it all. And so we really dig into that. And then from there, we talk about pricing. Now, I don't tell them their price. I don't tell them what they should price it.
Right.
I do, however, challenge them on where they came up with their prices.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is something that women really struggle with. And I'm very happy to hear that there's people that help ladies to be confident in their worth and the value they're providing for their service or product or whatever they're offering. I love that. That's great. And I would think that superpower you have ties very nicely into the work you're doing, which means that you are fully aligned. So that's awesome.
Yes.
All right, Sandie, let's hear it. What did they tell you your superpower was?
So I polled friends, and friends said almost overwhelmingly that my superpower is creating time. Just finding things that I think are important and making time for them in my life.
Wow.
Which I would add that the flip side of that coin is, you know, prioritization and also being willing to let go of things, which I think is necessary when you're creating more space.
It's interesting. I was just saying to someone that I'm going through taking inventory right now, meaning I'm deciding what needs to stay and what needs to go. So I love that you said that because it is very true. So, wow, I've never heard anyone have that superpower. So that's a pretty powerful one. That's a good one. That's unique. I like that. All right. All right, Germaine, tell us, what did the consensus say?
Well, I asked a couple of people. I first started with my children because, you know, kids are going to be honest.
They will tell you straight up.
They're going to tell you straight up, no chaser. And my daughter, she is a little Aquarius and she is very straight to the point. So I asked her, I said, well, you know, what is mom's superpower? And she said, you know, Mom, I think your intuition is your superpower. And I'm thinking, okay, is it the eyes in the back of the head, mom type intuition? Is that what you mean? She said, no, Mom, you just seem to always know. You always know what to say, what to do, when to do it. And I thought it was really, and then she said something I thought was really beautiful. She said, and that makes me feel safe. And I just was like, oh, okay. Wow, that's great, right, beautiful. And then I asked a couple of my clients and they were saying, you know, you're compassionate, you're consistent. And I think one that I took away, which I loved how we started this whole conversation about adaptability. I had several people tell me, Germaine, you have the unique ability to adapt to any situation. So I'm going to take intuition and adaptability and merge those and let those be my superpowers.
Well, I have a feeling that your intuition is what guides you into your adaptability. So yes. And listen, we don't have one gift to the world. We have many. So it's not that it's pinpointing one, but the beauty of all of this is that you guys are aligned to utilizing your gift towards what you're sharing with the world. And that's the whole point. Like, that's what I've seen, is that where people get off track is when they're not aligned to what they're doing, how they're using their gift. Because that's, you know, Germaine was actually sharing with me before we went live. She was sharing with me that you originally started, you were going to become a doctor. And then you had a dream that you should go on a different path into what you've been doing for the last couple of decades. So that ties into that intuition again and that guidance. And now you are fully aligned and passionate and helping in making an impact with others. Wow. So ladies, I told you this on Tuesday. after this call, your mind is blown of how aligned you feel and connected to people that you've never met before, but yet as others are speaking, you're kind of like, yeah, I feel that way too. That falls in line. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing. You are all amazing. And now I get to hear who you're nominating for next week. So Sally, who will we have?
The amazing Angela Thompson. She goes by Ange. She's just a wonderful coach and just a joy to be around. So
Awesome.
I'm really excited for her to join you.
Awesome. Can't wait to meet Ange. All right, Sandie. I know you've got between two, so whoever you would like to present.
So it's going to be a surprise between Cindy Ivers, who's a finance specialist and also a core volunteer for us with many talents, or Elizabeth, who is an environmental attorney.
Wow.
So,
awesome.
one of the two.
One of those two, they both sound amazing. All right, Germaine, I think you have between two people also.
I do, but I am going to nominate this phenomenal young woman. She has such a very powerful story, and she's just dynamic. Her name is Latasha Green. She's an engineer, jewelry designer, serial entrepreneur, and just a dynamic creative. So I'm excited to let her share her story with you guys.
Awesome. Well, you ladies are amazing. Continue to share your superpowers and your light with the world, and we wish you all the best always.
Thank you.